They say money can't buy happiness, but losing $10 million in one day, that taught me something even darker. My billionaire husband thought he could steal my inheritance and replace me with his secretary. He was wrong. This is how I made him pay for every single betrayal. Before I tell you how I lost everything and got it all back, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Trust me, you're going to want to hear every twisted detail of this story. And stick around until the end, because the revenge, it's sweeter than you can imagine. My name is Nicole, and 3 years ago, I thought I was living the American dream. I had worked my way up from nothing. Grew up in Detroit with my grandmother after my parents died in a car crash when I was 12. Grandma Rose raised me in a tiny 2-bedroom house, but she taught me something invaluable. Never let anyone make you feel small because of who you are or where you come from. By 34, I had built a successful marketing career in San Francisco. That's where I met William Chen, a tech billionaire who seemed too good to be true. Spoiler alert, he was. William was everything I thought I wanted: successful, charming, and he pursued me like I was the only woman in the world. Within 6 months, we were engaged. Within a year, married in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses. For 3 years, I lived in his world. The mansion in Pacific Heights, the private jets, the charity galas where everyone knew his name. I should have been happy, right? But something always felt off. William would make these little comments about my hair, my clothes, the way I talked when I got excited. Nothing cruel enough to call him out on, but enough to make me second-guess myself constantly. Then everything changed when Grandma Rose passed away. I was devastated. Rose was more than my grandmother. She was my mother, my best friend, my anchor. The funeral was small, just me, a few neighbors, and surprisingly, William actually came. I thought it showed he cared, but now I know he had other reasons. A week after the funeral, Rose's lawyer called me into his office. I expected maybe a few $1,000s, some jewelry, maybe the little house I grew up in. Instead, he slid a folder across his desk and said, "Congratulations, Nicole. Your grandmother left you quite a legacy. $10 million. I stared at those numbers until they blurred. Apparently, my quiet grandmother had been buying properties in Detroit for decades. As the city started its comeback, her little investments turned into gold mines. She never said a word, just quietly built wealth and left it all to me. I called William immediately, crying happy tears. You know what his first words were? Not, "I'm sorry for your loss," or "Rose would be so proud." It was, "We need to talk about investment strategies." That should have been my first red flag, but I was grieving and overwhelmed. When William offered to have his financial team handle everything, I was grateful. He knew about money, I didn't. He had lawyers and accountants I could trust, right? So when he brought home stacks of papers for me to sign, I barely read them. Investment portfolios, he said, trust documents, legal protections. I signed them all. The next few months felt like watching my marriage through frosted glass. William was there, but not really there. He started working late constantly, taking phone calls in his office with the door closed. When I'd walk into a room, conversations would stop. His assistant, Rachel, who used to be friendly, started avoiding eye contact. I tried to talk to William about it, but he'd brush me off. "You're being paranoid, Nicole. I'm just stressed about the new product launch." Then he'd kiss my forehead like I was a child and walk away. The worst part, I started believing him. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe this was just what marriage looked like after the honeymoon phase. Maybe I should be grateful instead of suspicious. Then came the accident that changed everything. It was a rainy Tuesday morning in November. I was driving to meet my friend Diana for coffee when some kid ran a red light and clipped my rear bumper. Nothing serious, but my car was undrivable. The police came, reports were filed, and I needed to call our insurance company. The problem: all our important documents were in William's home office. and he was in New York for meetings. I called him, but it went straight to voicemail. I needed those insurance papers to get a rental car, so I did something I'd never done before. I used the spare key to his office. William's office had always been off limits. Too many confidential business documents, he'd say, but desperate times, right? I unlocked the door and stepped into his sanctuary. The insurance papers were right where I expected, in the filing cabinet by his desk. But as I reached for them, I noticed something odd. The bottom drawer, which I'd never seen open, was slightly ajar, and I could see the edge of a folder with my name on it. My hands were shaking as I pulled out that folder. Inside were documents I'd never seen before, transfers of my inheritance to accounts I didn't recognize, bank statements showing my $10 million moving through various holdings and investments, but nothing in my name anymore. That's when I found the divorce papers. They were already drawn up, dated 3 weeks earlier. According to these documents, I was mentally unstable, incapable of managing finances, and had willingly transferred my assets to William's care before suffering a psychological breakdown. The papers painted me as a gold digger who had married William for money, then lost her mind when she couldn't access his wealth. It was all lies, but it was documented lies, signed by lawyers and notarized. I kept digging, and each document felt like a knife twisting deeper. There were photos of William and Rachel together, not business photos, but intimate ones, dinner dates, weekend trips, her wearing jewelry I recognized from charges on our credit card, messages between them talking about when this is over and starting fresh. The final blow was a pregnancy test result, with Rachel's name on it, dated 2 months ago. I sat in that chair, surrounded by evidence of my husband's betrayal, and felt something inside me shatter. Not just my heart, my whole sense of reality. How long had this been planned? How long had I been living a lie? Then I heard the garage door opening. I quickly put everything back, locked the office, and pretended to be looking for aspirin in the kitchen when William walked in. He was supposed to be in New York until Thursday, but here he was, flowers in hand, smiling at me like he hadn't just destroyed my entire life. "Surprise, honey. Finished early and wanted to take you to dinner." He kissed me, and I tasted betrayal on his lips. Somehow, I managed to act normal through dinner. I smiled, laughed at his jokes, even held his hand across the table. Inside, I was screaming. Every "I love you" felt like acid in my throat. But I knew I had to be smart about this. If I confronted him now, without a plan, I'd lose everything. That night, I lay awake next to the man who was planning to destroy me, and I made a decision. William thought he was dealing with the same trusting, naive woman he'd married. He was wrong. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove straight to Diana's house. Diana had been my friend since college, and she was now one of the best family lawyers in the city. If anyone could help me, it was her. When I showed her copies of the documents I'd secretly photographed, her face went white. "Nicole, this is fraud. Like, serious federal crime fraud. But we need to be careful. William has resources and connections you don't." Diana explained that William had made several crucial mistakes. First, he'd forged documents claiming I was mentally incompetent without any medical evidence. Second, he'd moved my inheritance without proper legal authority. Third, his affair was documented in his own files, which would void any claim that I was a gold digger. But we needed more evidence, and we needed to be strategic. For the next month, I lived a double life. During the day, I played the loving wife. I went to his business dinners, smiled for photos, even played nice with Rachel at office parties. But at night, I was building my case. I discovered that William's business partner, Thomas, had been asking questions about sudden changes in company finances. When I carefully reached out to him, I learned he'd been suspicious of William for months. Together, we uncovered a web of financial manipulation that went far beyond my inheritance. William hadn't just stolen from me, he'd been embezzling from his own company, using my money to cover the gaps. His big IPO launch, the one that was supposed to make him even richer, it was built on fraudulent numbers and stolen funds. The deeper I dug, the clearer the picture became. William hadn't married me for love. He'd researched me, targeted me specifically because he knew about my grandmother's properties. He'd played the long game, earning my trust, isolating me from friends who might ask questions, then positioning himself to take everything when Rose died. Rachel wasn't just his affair, she was his accomplice. She'd helped him forge documents, create false paper trails, even pose as me in phone calls to financial institutions. In exchange, he'd promised to divorce me and marry her once he'd secured my money. The pregnancy, just insurance, to make sure I'd be too devastated to fight back effectively. But William had underestimated me. He saw a grieving, trusting wife. I saw a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The final piece of evidence came from an unexpected source: William's own arrogance. One evening when he thought I was asleep, he took a call from Rachel in his office. I crept down the hall and recorded the entire conversation through the door. "The IPO is next week," he said. "Once the company goes public and we cash out, we can finalize everything. Nicole won't be able to prove anything, especially with the mental health angle." "What if she finds out?" Rachel asked. "She won't. And even if she does, who's going to believe her over me? I'm William Chen. She's nobody." That recording was the smoking gun I needed. Diana helped me coordinate everything perfectly. The day before William's IPO was set to launch, I walked into the FBI field office with a folder full of evidence: financial fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, conspiracy. The charges kept piling up. While federal agents were reviewing my case, I made one more stop. William's business partner, Thomas, had agreed to help, and together we called an emergency board meeting for that afternoon. I'll never forget the look on William's face when he walked into that conference room, expecting to celebrate his IPO launch, only to find FBI agents waiting for him. "William Chen, you're under arrest for financial fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft." He looked at me across that table, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw real fear in his eyes. "Nicole, what did you do?" "I fought back," I said simply. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind. William's company stock crashed before it could even launch. Rachel was arrested as an accomplice. My inheritance was frozen pending investigation, but Diana assured me it would be returned with interest once the courts sorted everything out. The media had a field day. Tech billionaire arrested for stealing wife's inheritance. Wife's revenge brings down empire. The headlines were brutal, but for once, they were on my side. 3 months later, William was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His assets were seized to pay back investors and cover restitution. Rachel lost her job, her legal fees bankrupted her, and William's promises of marriage and a fairy tale life evaporated the moment he put on that orange jumpsuit. As for me, I got every penny of my inheritance back, plus damages and interest. But more importantly, I got my life back. I used that money to start my own marketing firm, focusing specifically on helping small businesses owned by women of color. Grandma Rose would have been proud. I also started a foundation to help women who've been financially abused by their partners, because I learned I wasn't alone in this experience. The house in Pacific Heights? I sold it and moved into a beautiful but modest place in Oakland, where I can see the bay from my kitchen window. No more marble floors or crystal chandeliers, just a home that feels like mine. Sometimes people ask me if I regret marrying William, if I wish I'd seen the signs earlier. The truth is, I learned something invaluable from that experience. I learned that my grandmother was right. Never let anyone make you feel small. But I also learned something she didn't teach me. Sometimes people will try to destroy you, not because you're weak, but because they know how strong you really are. William saw my strength, my ambition, my loyalty, and he thought he could weaponize those qualities against me. He thought he could make me complicit in my own destruction. What he didn't count on was that those same qualities would be exactly what I needed to fight back. Today, 3 years after that accident that changed everything, I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm building something real with my business. I'm helping other women find their strength. And I'm dating someone who loves me for exactly who I am. Someone who celebrates my success instead of trying to steal it. As for William, he sends letters sometimes, claiming he never meant to hurt me, that he got caught up in greed and made mistakes. I don't read them anymore. Diana handles all communication with his lawyers. And frankly, I don't have time to waste on his excuses. The last I heard, Rachel was working as a waitress in Fresno, raising William's daughter alone. I actually feel sorry for that little girl. She deserves better than the mess her parents created. But this story isn't about them anymore. It's about what happens when you refuse to be a victim. It's about trusting your instincts, even when everyone tells you you're wrong. It's about fighting back, even when the odds are stacked against you. Most importantly, it's about remembering that your worth isn't determined by who loves you or how much money you have. Your worth comes from who you choose to be when everything falls apart. Grandma Rose used to say that diamonds are formed under pressure. Well, William Chen put me under more pressure than he ever imagined I could handle. But instead of breaking me, he just helped me discover exactly how strong I really was. And that strength? That's worth more than $10 million any day. If this story taught you anything, it's that karma has perfect timing. William thought he could use me and throw me away. But he forgot one thing: never underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal and sweet revenge, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to fight back against someone who tried to take advantage of you? I read every single comment, and your story might be next.